Well, I would like to welcome everyone for joining the Merkaz Olami, Masorti Alomi, Masorti Israel, the Rabbinical Assembly, and USCJ, United Synagogues of Conservative Judaism, for this briefing, the rise in anti-Semitism and the impact on our worldwide Masorti conservative communities. I am Mirko Lebel from Brazil, current president of the board of Masorti Latin America. For all of us in the diaspora, we're currently worried not only for everything that has been happening in Israel, including the lost lives, the war, and hostages, but also by the sudden increase in anti-Semitism in our regions. Please note that we're transmitting with simultaneous translation in French and Spanish. You can join this translation by clicking on the globe's icon at the bottom toolbar on your Zoom screen. If you're having any problems, please send a message through the chat. It is my utmost pleasure to introduce today's event's facilitator, Dr. Yizhar Hess, one of the leading voices in Israel promoting the Jewish pluralism and a friend to many of us here. Yizhar served as the executive director of the Masorti movement in Israel between 2007 and 2020. Just to mention one of his important accomplishments during this time, he represented the Masorti movement in the negotiations with the Israeli government regarding the egalitarian prayer at the Kotel. Currently, Yizhar is the vice chair of WZO. Welcome, Yizhar.
Thank you, Mirko. Thank you for opening this session. Good evening from Modi'in, between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. As you said, I'm Yizhar Hess. I'm the vice chairman of the World Zionist Organization, and I do it on behalf of Merkaz. I'm the senior representative of Merkaz Olami in the national institutions. Anti-Semitism. I must admit that for many years, I was in a feeling that people are exaggerating, that anti-Semitism is not such a big phenomenon today, and that we are rushing to call every criticism on Israel's policy as anti-Semite. I think I was wrong. What we evidently see today in so many places in the world could not be called differently. We gathered today to analyze this aspect globally, but from the lens of Masorti Judaism. We will hear soon from our respected panelists. Each one of them will speak for 4 to 5 minutes as an opening, describing the feel and the atmosphere post-October 7th. And from there, we will continue to questions. Please feel free to post questions in the chat, and with Nili's assistance, we will try to address as many as possible. I'd like to introduce our panelists today. Dr. Shuly Rubin Schwartz, the 8th Chancellor and the first woman Chancellor of the JTS, one of the known scholars for American Jewish history today. Rabbi Fabián Skornik, the spiritual leader of Lamrot HaKol, one of the leading Masorti congregations in Buenos Aires. Lamrot HaKol was founded in 1944 by Jews who escaped from Germany. Lamrot HaKol, a unique name for a synagogue. It means in Hebrew, in spite of everything. Rabbi Gesa Ederberg, the first female pulpit rabbi in Berlin, the head of Masorti Judaism in Germany, and the vice president of the Rabbinical Assembly. Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, the senior rabbi of Masorti Judaism in the UK. He is the rabbi of New North London Synagogue for over 25 years. And if you haven't been to New North London Synagogue, you should. It's one of the most fascinating and vibrant Masorti synagogues in the world. Chancellor Schwartz, please, I'd like to start with you. JTS is right next to Columbia University. We heard and read so many things, bothered things from that campus recently. So let's open with New York and the US. Bevakasha.
Sure. And thank you for organizing this. Wonderful to be with my colleague panelists, and looking forward to the conversation today. Yes, I would say I too, as I would not say I thought that anything about anti-Semitism was exaggerated. I would put it a little differently. I would say that I did not believe, as a Jewish historian, did not believe that in my lifetime I would witness a resurgence of anti-Semitism of this scope, being within a century of the Shoah. And so that feels felt somewhat startling, but as a scholar of Jewish history, it is sadly the latest manifestation of anti-Semitism. How is it manifesting itself in this moment since October 7? What is startling, of course, as you are reading, is the anti-Semitism on the left. And yes, as an institution that has such close ties, that is located on Morningside Heights, that particularly was chosen to be part of an academic acropolis, we are very much in the fray in everything that has been happening since October 7. I want to give you a little bit of background of why I think anti-Semitism, very much so in the form of anti-Zionism, has exploded on particularly elite college campuses in North America. I would say that there are three things that have contributed to this decline, to this increase in anti-Semitism. One is the decline in the study of humanities in liberal arts colleges and universities around the country. You have fewer and fewer students studying the kinds of courses in English, in history, in philosophy, in religion, that would give them the opportunity to think about character development, to think about the big questions in life, to think about what matters in this world, to develop a moral core. And that is happening less and less, even in elite universities, where the predominant major is in economics or finance or business or some sort of more what students imagine is a more practical route to a more lucrative career. Second, campuses have for many, many years been supportive of the growth of identity politics, so that you have separate groups for different races, different religions, different affinity groups, each one being celebrated in and of itself. And that leads to a hardening of boundaries rather than to the creation of a culture of curiosity, of openness, of discourse, to use the time in college to get to know and to learn to respect individuals who are different from one another. And finally, the great increase in interest on college campuses and what is known in shorthand here, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which, you know, all different kinds of inclusion began, of course, with special needs, learning differences, but has expanded. And it has become patently clear in the wake of October 7 that a group that is in need of special consideration for equity and inclusion does not include Jews. What we witnessed was in the wake of October 7th and the brutal massacre of Israelis, the maiming, the hostage taking, there was a shocking lack of moral clarity among so many heads of institutions of higher education. And then there was a lot of back and forth, rallies and counter rallies. There was a distinct sense among young Jews, and our undergraduate students were right in that fray, that all of a sudden, individuals they felt that they had an affinity with, where they were working together on issues of justice, suddenly had no empathy for the brutal murder, maiming, and hostage taking of Jewish Israelis. And that was profoundly, profoundly painful for our students, and obviously for many others on campus. You still have colleges working this out. As a colleague said to me yesterday, those presidents whose first statement showed moral clarity didn't need to issue statement number 2, number 3, and number 4. But those who didn't had to keep trying and trying and trying to get right what should have been patently clear at the get-go. Many institutions, and Columbia University being one of them, has indeed now created a task force on anti-Semitism. And I personally have been involved in outreach, both to the president of Columbia University, who was eager to join me at JTS for lunch to really learn more about how she could do better. She began in August, so she has a lot to learn about her massive university that she now leads, and was eager to understand how to really engage in cultural change, not symbolic change. A task force is just a symbol. It's what we make of it. And we spoke very frankly about what actually needs to happen to extinguish a culture of anti-Semitism from a college campus. The same, we are across the street from a liberal Protestant seminary, Union Theological Seminary, with which we have close ties. And again, I have spent time with the president of Union, whom I know well. It is a very liberal seminary. It is very pro-Palestinian. What we're seeing on college campuses is that much of the pro-Palestinian fervor is based on shocking ignorance. And individuals who just assume they're buying the lingo of colonialist, occupier, etc., and just assume they should be on that side. I think the last thing that I would add is that we've been reading a lot about moments where students feel unsafe. There's one Israeli, you probably saw the video of the Israeli who teaches in the business school at Columbia, telling parents, don't send students to Columbia. And the students at Cooper Union who were sequestered in the library for a while. I can say those things are way drawn out of proportion to the reality of what is going on. The word unsafe on a college campus, particularly since the Me Too movement, means many, many things. And feeling physically unsafe is only one of the things that it means. So when students say, I'm feeling unsafe, it usually means that they are feeling anxious. They are feeling uneasy, and that is absolutely true. Students feel uneasy. They are a little hesitant to speak to someone in class if they don't know that person, they had not already established a relationship with them. They do not know if that person was tearing down a hostage sign or participating in a pro-Palestinian rally the day before. And so there's a wariness, but students do not feel unsafe. I can say our own students, our undergraduates who are also Columbia students, feel very grateful to be living at the Jewish Theological Seminary and grateful to have a supportive Jewish community but they are very much in the thick of what it means to try to live in both worlds and make sense of this world.
Thank you, Chancellor. Rabbi Fabián Skornik, how is it in Buenos Aires? In addition to everything, you also have a new president.
Yes, Javier Milei, who
Quite
is
a character.
he's very close to the Orthodox community here, and today he's in the OL in Queens, in New York, and I think that it's not very good for us, but he doesn't ask me if it's good for us. So I want to start with the question: is Argentina an anti-Semitic country? And this question is very difficult to answer because, in one hand, we have a vibrant community, maybe the biggest one in Latin America, and we have a lot of institutions who works without a problem every day, and we have lived a Jewish life here in Argentina. But in the other hand, we have a very strong anti-Semitic acts in our history, and the latest more difficult time was the bomb and the embassy, the Israeli embassy, and in the AMIA, where in the AMIA they killed 85 people. So we have a difficult definition to anti-Semitic in Argentina because, for example, the security in our communities is an issue for us. And the rest of organizations in Argentina, they don't have this issue. But for us, it's our work to be saved in our communities. And we have in Argentina, we had a minister of the government, a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, who worked at this time as a minister without problem, and we have Jewish people in the parliament too, and very important businessmen and politicians are. They don't need to hide their Judaism to be there. Okay, what happened after October 7? Of course, the anti-Semitism increased. 2 days after this happened, the community Jewish organized a manifestation to support Israel, and at the same time, there were another manifestation of Palestinian people or people who support Palestinian, 48 hours after the pogrom. They marched in the street with the swastikas, with blood. So I think that at this time, the anti-Semitism rise in Argentina, and the organization need to defend itself for a false progressive left here in Argentina, like I think in the rest of the world. Perhaps the place where it's more difficult to be Jewish is in the universities, especially in public ones, and in the social media. We can see this increase. Maybe always be a rejection there, but this situation increased this danger to be Jewish in these places. And today, there is a lot of students in university who express this fear to be Jewish there. And a few days ago, we have a manifestation in front of the university for the cessation of these hostilities. The Jewish community joined 5,000 people in front of the university to manifest this opposition to the anti-Semitism in the university. For example, I use my kippah in the public roads for more than 20 years, and I never had a problem, but recently, in certain public places, I took off this kippah because it's danger, and our security team recommend this for us. And the maybe more important, there is a Jewish school who asked to the children to take off their uniform, because in the street, to go in the street with a uniform of a Jewish school is danger. And it was very significant for us, this situation. We have graffitis appear in homes, the Jewish people. We have this kind of manifestation of anti-Semitism. Since October 7th, the police, the government police, reinforced the custody of all Jewish institutions, and although this is being carried out, we know that it's temporary, and anytime it will be our responsibility of each institution to reinforce our security. So to conclusion, maybe the event of October 7, the pogrom, does not produce anti-Semitism. The answer of Israeli army, I think that they don't produce. Only this act can bring light what already exists. The anti-Semitism is under the superficie today, or yesterday, and today is on the lights.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rabbi. Just a short question. Is there an expectation for Israel to be involved in security in Latin America? The community thinks about it, wants it?
I think that in this time, we don't we haven't asked for Israel anything. We need to collaborate or to cooperate, and we need to work for ourselves, to our security. It's difficult to imagine Israel involved in our security, because this is a national governmental issue.
Sure. Rabbi Gesa Ederberg, it's for many years we felt that anti-Semitism in Germany post the Shoah isn't an issue. Like it is a place where it's quite safe. Did it change recently?
I can just join those who spoke before me. It has risen its ugly head again, and we are somewhat surprised how bad it is. The massacre of October 7th was celebrated on the Berlin streets afterwards. Universities are, I think, in a better situation. There hasn't been demonstrations on campus, and there hasn't been that much of an issue there. I would like to focus on what I think is really special in Germany, and I'll do that by describing a couple of events. The support by politicians to the Jewish community is outstanding. And it's also, we feel it's not only words, it really comes from their hearts. So let me start with an event we had 10 days after the attack. Several representatives of the Jewish community were invited to the parliament in Berlin for a briefing and meeting with the heads of the 5 different parties who are represented in the parliament. No, 4 of them. The extreme right wing was not invited, and the president and her team. For a briefing with the Israeli ambassador Ron Prosor, who just had come back from Israel. You might know that the foreign minister Annalena Baerbock was the first foreign politician to visit Israel after it happened, and German Chancellor Schwartz was there a couple of days later, and Prosor came back, and we were then sitting on the gallery of the parliament while the mayor of Berlin and all the politicians were speaking, and it was unanimous. We do not want the Middle East conflict on the streets of Berlin. We will take measures about that. Victims in Gaza are victims of Hamas, which I thought was a very, very liberating way of saying it. And we do everything to strengthen and provide security for Jewish life in Berlin. And what was for us as Masorti especially beautiful is that 2 of them, both the Green Party and the Social Democratic Party speakers, said that now we need to strengthen interfaith peace projects in Berlin, such as the 3-religion nursery school that Masorti, that we are one of the partners. So this was mentioned explicitly. The second event was when I came back from the Masorti Merkaz Olami Solidarity mission on November 9th, I went directly from the flight from Israel to the central Kristallnacht commemoration. And getting there, I was totally flabbergasted by the high level of security, and I felt like, they're really overdoing it. Till I realized that usually at Kristallnacht commemorations, either the president of Germany or the chancellor is there to speak. But this time, the president, the chancellor, president of the parliament, president of the legal system, and I think 5 federal ministers were there to attend and to express their solidarity. And the clear understanding of never again is now is what they all shared. And at the commemoration in the evening run by the Jewish community of Berlin, the mayor of Berlin told me afterwards that he made sure that the Brandenburg Gate, which was illuminated in the Israeli flag colors, and the big magenta on the Brandenburg Gate right after the massacre, now had the slogan "Never Again is Now" written on the Brandenburg Gate for all of Kristallnacht, and I think even a day later. And this is amazing, and this is kind of the culture. Now add to that one of the speakers for one of the parties was of Iranian descent. So she said, well, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian government, it's all the same, and we are in this fight against them together. And just to make sure and clear to everybody that in a different color, these people are even sitting here in the parliament pointing to the right extreme party, the Alternative for Germany, which is one of the issues, I think, in Germany, that we see a rise in in anti-immigration voices, because it's very easy right now to use what's going on in Israel for Islamophobic and anti-Muslim statements. And this is one of my worries, actually. How can we keep our relationships and work with them? And I'm happy to report that I'm part of 2 think tanks, actually, local Berlin think tanks, one organized by the Green Party, one by the Social Democratic Party, who both call for Jewish and Muslim leaders trusting on our long-built friendships to think what to do together now in the city. And to hear under how much pressure the Muslim leaders who have been working with us and have been engaged in anti-Semitism projects for 20 years, how they feel now they need to apologize for being Muslims, and how they balance between standing our side on the one hand and not losing contact to their own constituency on the other hand was somewhat heartbreaking, really. We had at our synagogue, we did a tefillah, an evening solidarity evening prayer, and invited broadly. And the bishop of the Lutheran Church of Germany, which is of Berlin and Brandenburg, which is the largest, it's the only Protestant church, significant Protestant church in Germany, was there, as was the vice president of the federal parliament and one of our Muslim presidents of one of the Muslim communities. So I feel we are working really hard to build these local coalitions and to look into a future while I'm trying to be very conscious that our perspective on what's going on necessarily is somewhat different from a Muslim perspective on what's going on. And we need to hear their voices also while being very clear on what are the needs of the Jewish people in general, and obviously in Israel especially. And that's where we are balancing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Ederberg. It's interesting. It's in a way, it's way more positive than other places. But you did say that in the beginning that after the massacre, there were people rallying in the streets. How many people participated in that rally? Significant number, or?
So there were a couple of thousand people on the street. But the feedback is that the majority of Muslims and also of Palestinians living in Germany are really, really not part of that. The Green member of parliament for the Berlin district with the highest Muslim and Palestinian population, some people call it the Gaza Strip, jokingly. She said that she made a point of walking around her district and kind of getting a feel of the atmosphere. And her feeling was that most of the people there were kind of really subdued and tried to avoid these kind of demonstrations. There is a strong the slogan from the Palestine must be free has been banned it's illegal in Germany now, because it's defined as calling for genocide, and several Hamas-related organizations have also been, made illegal in Germany. So the government and the police are moving really quickly on these things.
Thank you, Rabbi Wittenberg. In the UK and especially in London, how is it?
It's been a tough time in London, and I think our hearts are with you in Israel and the trauma that's ongoing. And one of the lines I took with me from the solidarity visit is the date in Israel remains the 7th of October, and that's very much with me. It's difficult here in London. It's been one of the worst places in Europe, I think. I echo a lot of what my colleagues from around the world have just said. But to preface, I'm going to say a little bit about the anti-Semitism and a bit about the solidarity, but I want to preface it with saying that what people are seeing here day after day after day are frontline pictures of what Gaza looks like and the devastation of Gaza, and constant reports and constant numbers. They presumably come from Hamas. They're not verified, but that's what people are saying. And one has to take into account the different perceptions that we're getting of what's actually happening, and the corrosive and really vile influence of social media used by people who probably couldn't locate either Israel or Palestine on the map if you presented it to them. And those are extremely, extremely damaging. There's been a 570% rise in anti-Semitic incidents since October the 7th in Britain, most of them in London. There's also been over a doubling of anti-Muslim incidents and hate comments. Most of these are verbal. There's been very, very little physical assault. There have been huge marches. The numbers are, expressed as 300,000 people persistently Sunday after Sunday marching through London. There's also challenges in schools. It's more about silence and the failure to care for pupils. Jewish pupils at non-Jewish schools. Universities have been many of the more difficult, particularly, as Chancellor Schwartz said, in the elite universities, though not all of them. I just heard from somebody senior at Oxford who said they're still more interested in their love life than in the Middle East, which I was for once pleased to hear. And workspaces have been really, really difficult for people, and I'm going to focus on that. I was asked on BBC Radio 4 whether I would agree with the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, that the marches are hate marches. I didn't agree. There are elements of real hate, and there are people who join anything hateful. There is the elite left, as again was said by others, misguided left, but there are also a lot of people who just care about the civilian loss of life, and they don't actually attribute it to Hamas. They don't really understand who or what Hamas is. The huge exception to that are Iranians. There are a lot of Iranian emigres in London, and particularly Iranian women who've been outspoken. Yesterday, there was a huge demonstration against anti-Semitism, tens and tens of thousands. I don't know, somewhere between 60 and 100,000 people. And it wasn't just Jewish. You saw a lot of Iranian flags there, a lot of British flags there, and a lot of Israeli flags there. So that was I think people needed to rally back in solidarity. I want to talk about some particular things. In workspaces, people are really struggling. And people are approaching me all the time for support and for help. Sometimes it's about silence. Sometimes it's about Muslim and Jewish doctors who used to sort of really talk together, and now they're sitting separately. Nobody quite dares the silence. We've got an evening about sort of, entering those difficult spaces at my synagogue immediately after this. Sometimes it's much more hostile. Universities, some of them have produced statements which make no reference to Israel or to the hostages or to October the 7th at all. And the word genocide appears with reference to Israeli actions. Stop the genocide is quite widely heard. My wife, who's head of the Society of Authors, has had to resist pressure to put out statements in support of Palestinians and against the genocide. She's taken the view that, the Society of Authors is a writers' organization. It does not put out political statements about anything. Full stop, but it's really very difficult. In those circumstances, there are a number of positives. First of all, the government, both sides of it, has been very stalwart in its understanding of the Jewish community and its support for Israel. I'm a little bit cynical there because I think that I don't think that's purely altruistic. I think the government realizes that Israel's war against Hamas is everybody's war against terror, and that they share that battle. The police have been outspokenly supportive of the Jewish community, but security, which was already strong, has had to be ramped up everywhere. The Ukrainian community here has been very supportive. One of the first letters of support I received was from the Ukrainian bishop, who's a close personal friend. And I've had numerous letters of support from Christian colleagues and people I hadn't seen for years and years and years. And there are now, and perhaps most remarkable, from a senior British sheikh who, together with the Archbishop of Canterbury, very, very early on, made a public statement which was widely reported on television against anti-Semitism. And I responded by saying we are opposed to all forms of hatred. So there are positive signs. And now there's an increasing understanding that we need to strengthen the ties between Jewish and Muslim communities across our faiths, across our communities, and that we don't want to bring this conflict here. But in all kinds of ways, it actually is here. So it's challenging times.
Rabbi, do you think that, would it enhance Jewish identity at the end of the day, or do vice versa? What is your feel about it?
I think there was one sign I was at the Solidarity rally yesterday. Hamas has made me Jewish. I was really, it was not a sign I was pleased to see. I want the wonderful religion of Judaism to make people Jewish, not Hamas. It will draw a lot of people in. It may frighten others. I have to say also that there are quite a lot of members of Jewish people, including members of my own community, who are going on those marches on the Sundays because they want to protest against the loss of life. So it's very complicated. I think it will probably make more people identify than not identify, but that may not apply so much to the young generation. I just don't know. It's a really good question.
Chancellor Schwartz, we have a question from Rafi regarding the curricula of humanities. So if you could address that, how it had effect on the perception of anti-Semitism. In addition, I'd like to share with you that one of our prominent rabbis in Los Angeles shared with me that his son, who plays in a soccer team of some sort, he's in high school, was called Dirty Jew. In Los Angeles of 2023, like last week. Is it something that you really feel in the streets? Is it something that you think that your students had to confront with?
I'll answer in the reverse order. I think that generally speaking, most of the tremendous, say, tripling, I don't know, quadrupling of anti-Semitic incidents are not violent. They're graffiti, they're swastikas, they are, of that nature. Our students have not experienced anything like that here. I can't, so I'm sure it is there, but it is not as dramatic as it gets hyped up on social media and on television as well. The question in the humanities really, it's fascinating. There's not a simple answer, but I would say that part of this is already now decades old. You have a humanities when I was in school, right? What was the chant at Columbia University? On one of the buildings, they had all of the great dead white men is what they were called, right? So that's all anybody was reading. So I think that in a positive way, universities spent the next few decades trying to rectify that and add new voices. I'm a student and scholar of women's history. So yes, very much understanding who's underrepresented and how do we add more voices to the curriculum. But when you think about what was the purpose of humanities curriculum, particularly Columbia, which still has a core curriculum where you study great books, the goal was the outcome is that they were all white men, but the goal was to think about the big questions in life, to have the opportunity to debate and think and learn with people who are different from you and grow and consider what matters. And I don't know what that curriculum looks like now, when really it is someone from every race, someone from every continent, someone from every gender, right? There are so many criteria that sometimes I would imagine that the bigger questions can get lost.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think one of the bigger problems that no one would ever know if you're not in the weeds of a university is that courses like that are often taught by graduate students. Graduate students are young. Graduate students think they need to use their voice and let the world know what they think. A teacher of a course like that ought to be a facilitator. It is not their job to tell students what they think about about what Hamas did. That is not their role. And so there's an educational process that has been lost of what does it mean to work with young people and to really live up to the goals of a liberal education.
Yeah.
And by that, what you need to do is help individuals care about facts, learn what it means to assess social media, learn what it means to think about the big questions in life and not pronounce first and think second.
Yeah. Thank you. Rabbi Skornik, Scott Sheffrin is asking about relationships with the Muslim clergy. The Jews in Buenos Aires, you personally, are there connections between different communities?
Yes, here in Lamberta we started a relationship with the church in 1960. We were the first way to connect these two communities. In Argentina, we have, in Buenos Aires, we have Muslim institutions, more, maybe we have only a few of them, and we have some contact. We have in Lamberta Call a table, a meeting with Muslim and Catholic from 1994, from the bomb in Amia. And every month a few women met and talk and learn from the other. And we have a lot of relationship, but at this time, I received some messages from them, only ask me if I have a relative in Israel who is kidnapped or who is injured. And when I ask from my family, no, oh, okay, it's okay. I think that I expect more for them, but we are working with them from a lot of years, and I expect more at this time.
And I want to ask you the same question that I asked Rabbi Wittenberg about the UK. You know, we know in retrospect that the bombing of the Amia, I would say, did not help Jewish identity. People were afraid being Jewish afterwards more than before, and in a way, it pushed people outside, or more to assimilate. Do you think the current events would create the same kind of vibe, or vice versa?
Definitively, yes. The Friday after the October 7, we had more people present in the synagogue, connect through YouTube, and from them to now, we have a lot of people coming to every activity. And I started to talk in different places to Jewish who are far from the community. And after this, they are thinking to return, not to the halacha, but to the community, to a safety space. Some of them decided to support Israel through donation. I think that these type of things wake up a Jewish identity.
Thank you. Rabbi Ederberg, we have a question from Elias from France. He is wondering how come campuses in France are so anti-Israel, while you said that campuses in Germany are quite okay. Where do you find that difference coming from?
It's a good question. I think campuses in Germany are, in any case, less of a political protest area. So people, if they are politically engaged, they take that outside of campuses. So campus is just not the space for it. I can't. Yeah, that's as far as I can explain that. There have been anti-Semitic incidents. And for example, my daughter just told me they have organized a middle school, which they work together. Yeah.
I think I didn't hear the last sentence. Maybe it's.
I think, well, I think I was frozen, right? So
Yeah.
what I see, but it's anecdotal evidence, is that, for example, my daughter, they have now organized a group of Jewish students at her medical school, which they were not organized because one student did experience an anti-Semitic reaction, and then they felt they need to get together. But it's more on a one-on-one level, and there haven't been any big actions, nothing compared to what's going on in the US.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Haverim, thank you so much. I'd like to thank the panelists for being with us today. It's not an easy period, not in Israel and not outside of Israel. But what we learned from Jewish history, that after a big catastrophe in our history, there is a potential for a new beginning. I'm looking for a new beginning in the state of Israel, and on that, I'm optimistic that we will have a better Israel after we wake up from this nightmare. And I would like to hope that also when it comes to Jewish life outside of Israel, and for sure to Israel diaspora connections, that we will have some kind of a new horizon to look up to. It's too soon to know, and we are in the midst of everything. Every night here in Israel, we are so tense to see how many people will be saved from Hamas this evening. And if indeed the names that we were hoping to see will come, and it's like a train with many turns. So we're in the midst of it, but I think that that not only we will survive, but we will have a better future here in Israel and elsewhere. So I chose to be optimistic on that. I'd like to invite Daniel Stein to conclude this event.
Okay, so thank you very much to everybody, and especially to the panelists, to Yizhar with optimist notes, which is not easy at this time, and also to the organizers, so Yizhar, but also Nili, and Mauricio, who is always with Yizhar active, and especially know it's terrible situation where we need a huge collaboration of our Masorti organization, and also to Tehila, who is also very helpful. And I would like to add that indeed Masorti is like a family, and it's a huge chance we can speak all together and have the point of view of so different country. And I want to also to tell that there will be other briefings with other countries panelists, so we can have also broad information about what's going on in all the countries. And we have very similar situation, but also quite differences from country to country. And so it's really interesting to follow that. And so thank you.
תודה רבה, ערב טוב.
תודה רבה.
ביי ביי.
כל טוב.
Thank you.